5 books and counting. The Tales from the Omni Vault continues to expand as a universe. Go ahead and check the links down in the description to get your copies today.
Well, here I am, ready to go drive out and see Godzilla -1, the first Japanese Godzilla movie to get widespread American distribution in theaters since 1999. Feels like ages ago. And you know, I do feel a little bit nervous about this because, well, Toho hasn't exactly been hitting it out of the park recently when it comes to kaiju stuff. Godzilla in particular, yes, but kaiju stuff in general. I've pretty much said my piece about how they've been doing with Godzilla at this point. Shin Godzilla, sure, it was a financial success, but it was also just soulless, dehumanizing propaganda. The Polygon trilogy was Vogon emo poetry. Singular Point was so confusing that it confused even itself. But it's not just that. They've also done those 2 live-action Attack on Titan movies before Shin Godzilla, which were ugly to look at, very bland, not interesting, didn't really capture the feel of the anime or the manga, which I wasn't even that into to begin with, but I could still recognize the source materials better than what those movies produced. And then there was Monster Hunter, which, yes, I know, American-produced film, but they had their logo at the beginning. There's a Toho logo right there. It counts. They still attached their name to it. They still had some kind of a say in how it turned out, and it was miserable. The only Toho kaiju movie I've liked as of late was Shin Ultraman, which, you know, they were more distributor in that regard, but again, their logo at the beginning. And the thing is, Shin Ultraman wasn't even a perfect movie. I still like it. I'm not backing away from anything I said in the review, but it's still heavily flawed. It was so close to the line of, if it had just messed up certain things, it could have gone really poorly. But, well, Shin Ultraman, like I said, I still like it, but it's one movie I like against so many others that were just so poor. But now we've got -1 on the way, and it looks like it's much better. I will say that. It seems like the trailers have addressed every critique I've had against recent Godzilla media, and maybe it's gonna be good. Maybe this is gonna be the Godzilla movie I've been hoping for. But I don't know. Trailers can lie. We all know that. But, well, I'm bracing myself, but don't get the wrong idea. I am rooting for this movie. I want it to succeed. I want it to be good. But I am still prepared for the possibility that it will be another disappointment. If it's not a disappointment, then very little's going to change. I will, of course, champion the movie if I think it's good, and, well, things will continue as usual. But if it's bad, if Godzilla -1 is the latest disappointment in a string of disappointments, then I see no reason to continue giving Toho any attention. It's clear in that scenario that they want Godzilla to go in a particular direction despite what should be good for the series, and if they're not going to listen, well, they can only let me down so many times before I determine that it's better to just excise them from my life entirely and move on. If -1 is bad. Mind you, I am saying if. I'm not counting on it to be bad. I'm not hoping that it's bad. I'm hoping it's good. But I just don't know at this point. Listen, you've got to deliver, okay? This is where I'm at right now. I'm willing my hopes into an action figure. But hey, if it works, it works. Anyway, I can't just keep sitting here. I've got a theater to get to. If Takashi Yamazaki ever sees this video, I hope I can one day actually get to meet him face to face, so I can shake his hand and congratulate him personally. Finally. Before I get too deep into this, I just want to remind everyone that the -1 Monstrous Moment playlist is now live. There are a bunch of videos on it. Not as many as previous ones because, admittedly, it was a little short notice, but the videos that are there are really good. There will be a link for it at the end of this video and down in the description, so I urge you guys to go check all those videos out. You will not be disappointed. Well, maybe you'll be disappointed in the one video that was made by the Omni viewer. I don't know, I've never liked his work myself, but the other videos, I don't think you'll be disappointed. And speaking of not being disappointed, Godzilla -1 absolutely did not disappoint. Now, I'm just going to say the one thing that I'm sure some of you are anticipating me saying. I'm going to get it out of the way right now, and I won't mention it again for the rest of this video. Godzilla -1 is what Shin Godzilla should have been. Okay, I'm done now. I'm not going to bring Shin Godzilla up again in this video. I'm going to focus entirely on Godzilla -1 and what it does well, without getting into spoilers, of course. And what it does well is, I mean, sheesh, I'm not even sure where to begin. For starters, this is a very human-focused story. And I'm not just talking about the fact that the humans comprise the majority of the screen time, although that is the case. There is far more human stuff here than there is Godzilla stuff. But the human stuff is really, really good. But it's not just that there are a lot of humans on the screen. It's also the humanity of everything. This is a story about humanity, about people who are struggling to survive and finding reasons to live, even. It's that humanity that I've been wanting to see in a Godzilla movie for so long, and I was hoping -1 would deliver. The trailers made it seem like it was going to have that element, and the trailers did not lie. The main character especially, Shikimisha, I believe that's his name, I'm pretty sure, but he has this arc throughout the movie about him not just being a former soldier, but also a soldier who didn't necessarily do what he was told, and suffering not only from the fact that he didn't meet the standards that he was supposed to as a soldier, but also he's got this severe PTSD, which, you know, it's the 40s. PTSD didn't exist as a term yet. He also has survivor's guilt, and we see how this weighs him down and how he grows throughout the film. And of course, I'm not going to give away how it ends, but the way his arc ends, without giving away the details, it feels like he really did get there naturally. It felt earned. It felt like that was the way it would progress. He is a good protagonist. Dare I say one of the best protagonists in the whole Godzilla series. Whether it's Japanese or American or what have you, this is a good character. All the characters are really good, though. And there's even this underlying theme that humanity is important. I already said I wasn't going to bring up that other movie again, but I mean, one of my big complaints about it was that it de-emphasized humanity to the point where it felt like human life was cheap. This movie makes human life seem like the most precious thing there is, which, you know, I agree with that sentiment, but it's not just that I agree with it that I like it. The way the movie delivers that message really drives that point home. It's all about how it is humanity that matters the most. And again, I'm avoiding spoilers here, so I don't want to give anything away in that regard. but it all ties together. The message about the value of human life, the way in which we see one human life change, the way in which we see everybody's lives change, really, it works so incredibly well in this movie. I think Takashi Yamazaki must have been sitting on this for a long time and must have also been fine-tuning it for that whole time, because this is one tightly written tale. What about Godzilla himself? Well, like I said, Godzilla isn't in the movie all that much. You can kind of compare it to Godzilla 2014 or the original 1954 film in that regard, where he's there, but only for specific moments. However, much like in Godzilla 2014 or 1954, when he is on screen, boy is he on screen. This Godzilla moves, he emotes, he is vicious as he's tearing down Tokyo or pursuing boats or anything he does. There are even these little subtle moments throughout where you can really tell what he's thinking and what he's possibly going to do. And this isn't really a spoiler, but the way they do his atomic breath, this was revealed in the trailers, how his spines suddenly all pop out of his back like coolant rods or something, and then they all snap back in as if it's hitting the button that says fire before his heat ray goes. I gotta say, that was very well played. He doesn't use his heat ray that much, but again, it really makes an impact when he does use it. The movie just seems to have this innate understanding of how to depict a villainous Godzilla. Obviously, over here in America, we've got the more heroic Godzilla thing nailed down. But when it comes to a villainous Godzilla, like, he really does feel like a proper antagonist. He's an active antagonist. He isn't just sort of lumbering around slowly like Godzilla Earth or something, or spending most of his time in a cocoon like Godzilla Ultima, or whatever the case. He moves around. He is active. He looks at things and then he pursues them. This is how you do an emotive Godzilla. This is how you do an emotive kaiju in general. And again, I can't get into too much because I am trying to avoid spoilers here, but like, there's a lot the trailers held back on. So there are things here that really stand out, particularly when we first see Godzilla, but again, I'm not going to get into spoilers. I've also seen a few people notice that there were certain shots in the -1 trailers of Godzilla specifically that looked kind of familiar, like they were specifically taken from the Legendary movies. And I will say, those shots are there, but first of all, they're few and far between. Second, they're not just rehashes. In fact, there are other scenes not in the trailers which might seem familiar, but even those are not just rehashes. They're done in a new way, a way that feels appropriate for this movie, but at the same time, if you're a longtime fan, you will recognize them and go, oh, I know where he got that from, but I'm glad he used it this way. So, bottom line, this Godzilla delivers. Again, I think it's going to wind up being a very popular iteration of Godzilla as a result. I mean, only time will tell in that regard, but he certainly has my vote for one of the better iterations. Is there anything else I can say without getting into spoilers? Well, there is one thing. I noticed in the days leading up to -1's release, and not the American release, but the Japanese release in particular, that there were some concerns about whether or not the movie would be anti-American. Those rumors were floating around quite heavily. I don't know exactly how they started, but I do know that they caught on. People were going, well, there's been a lot of World War II nostalgia going on in Japan recently, and the movie is set in post-war Japan, so it's looking like it might wind up being kind of a weird nationalistic anti-American movie. We better be bracing ourselves for that. I, for one, was not entirely sold on the idea that it would be that way. Just based on the trailers, I didn't see anything that would specifically indicate that. And I also figured if Toho was going for a full theatrical release in America, it would be kind of a bold move on their part to make it very anti-American and then do that. It's like, here you go, here's a movie about how much we hate you guys. Enjoy. You know, that I'm not sure they would actually do that. And they didn't. Now, okay, -1 does have the mindset of Japan should stand on its own and not constantly rely on America for everything. And there are reasons given as to why America does not interfere in either trying to kill or at least steer Godzilla away from Japan. But it's not really anti-American. If anything, most of the critiques it has to level against a government system are leveled against the Japanese government, if you can believe it. And that critique isn't even of the post-war Japanese government, though you are looking at that being in function, but there's this mindset of the government didn't change from before the end of the war. And there's critique about how, I guess I can say this without spoiling much, there is a moment towards the end where, again, this ties into the whole theme of valuing human life, where it said that Imperial Japan treated human life like it was a cheap commodity, easily disposed of and replaced. So is it any wonder the war turned out the way it did? But we're going to value human life from this point onward. So that's where the message ultimately comes down to. And again, I think it's very well delivered. I won't say anything more, because again, avoiding spoilers here. But yeah, the concern about Godzilla -1 being some kind of anti-American diatribe, not the case. It's not really anti-anyone in any sort of strong capacity. It's really more about being pro-human life than it is about being anti-foreign governments or anti-military or anti-whatever party I consider my political rivals, that sort of thing. It's more about being positive, despite the negative title, which perhaps was actually intentional. So, bottom line, Godzilla -1 is definitely worth it. This is the movie I've been waiting for Toho to make. Am I still a little bummed that they're using CGI rather than suitmation? Yeah, a little. But honestly, like I said, this Godzilla was done really well. They even, when he's walking, have this bit where his spines kind of shift and wobble as he's walking around, like they used to do on the practical suits. That was a nice touch. I don't know how many people actually noticed that, but I certainly noticed it. So there is that sense that it's trying really hard to be a proper Godzilla movie, and it's what a proper Godzilla movie ought to be. At least this kind of Godzilla movie. Again, we're talking about like a very serious, dramatic idea. So if you're going to make that kind of Godzilla movie, -1 just set the bar really high. Of course, I love me some escapism, but I also like things with substance. -1 definitely has substance. This is one I'll probably be revisiting quite frequently. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to get into spoilers in this video. All I can say is, this movie was definitely worth the wait. Well, that's all I've got to say for now. And if you've managed to see it at this point, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. But again, keep it spoiler-free. Maybe I'll do a spoiler video just based on the theatrical viewing, or maybe I'll wait until I actually have a movie as a copy so I can, do a proper analysis of it. But either way, I'll definitely be revisiting this one frequently. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
Thank you all for watching. Now be sure to head down to the description to check us out on other platforms, as well as find links to the 5 current books in the Tales from the Omni Vault universe. Again, thank you all, and we'll see you next time.